Please stand by.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Warning. What is your name?
I am Jay Ramone, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
If the FCC knew you were doing drugs on the air, shut us down!
This gets more work done more accurately.
I will sit down with bands, artists, chefs, business owners, and fellow Oklahomans to talk about their projects and dealing with day-to-day life.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
Power of the internet is truly amazing.
All right, this is the Jay Ramone Podcast, and I am sitting here with a longtime KATT veteran, Mr. Ryan Day. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Ryan's background and history with the KATT. You're approaching 20 years, right?
Don't remind me, man.
Because I've been here almost 10 or at 10, and you were here a long time before me.
I won't mention the date just, because not knowing when this is going to publish. But in November, my 17th year in Oklahoma City at the same group station. Now, there have been, as all media companies do, some buy, sells, things shift around. But I've been in this building 17 years.
And the thing about radio is nobody realizes, especially when you're on the programming side of things.
Yeah.
That's such a generic term because you really have to do a little bit of everything, whether it be production or editing or organizational tasks like booking guests and calling their publicists and making sure they connect or website updating, a little bit of
social media, all the things.
Yeah, anything and everything throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to almost make yourself a Swiss Army knife. And I kind of believe this now about all jobs. Like it's not media, I think, was the first of it to happen like that. But I think all jobs at this point or any profession, you've got to kind of make yourself useful in as many ways as possible or be willing to make yourself useful like that. But yeah, I mean, just kind of off the back of my background. So before I came to Oklahoma City, I was born and raised in Southwest Oklahoma native kid. In Altus, more specific, if we need to get more specific.
Bulldog country.
Bulldog country. Did 5 years in radio down there before I even moved up here. It was one of my first jobs.
The Bone.
I worked for, it used to be Z93, got reformatted, and it was 93.5 The Bone. We also had an AM station that was classic country news talk ag network, as you do in rural Oklahoma. And we had a 100,000 watt KQ 106 FM station that was CHR hits, top 40 type stuff.
Which is rare in small markets like that. You typically don't have those.
And this is maybe getting too much into like Oklahoma radio history, but that was an original Al Fox station. It was the one of, if not the first 100,000 watt signal in this part of the state, country, etc.
Because there was one in Tulsa.
Yes.
Because it wasn't there when I was in school or lived in Tulsa, but the old studios were there and the sign was still on it because it was like a portable trailer building thing that was in the parking lot of like a Sam's or Walmart on the north side of Tulsa. And I always wondered what that station was, but all of his stations had the Fox, at least one of them.
Yeah, and they all incorporated some sort of foxtail or something in the logo or in the like business LLC, whatever it was.
Right.
There was always some sort of fox. branding, which was fortunate for me. I didn't know at the time because I was too young and dumb and just trying to get some experience. But a lot of the people I worked around in Altus and radio at the time had so many connections to Oklahoma City radio and media and people in general. I mean, heck, I moved up here, and one of the guys that worked in promotions when I started here at the KATT was a former youth minister of mine in Altus when I went to church.
Chili.
It was my buddy Chad.
Shout out to Chili.
I love that dude.
And when you told me he was your youth minister, that completely blew my mind.
It was...
I knew a different Chili.
Yeah.
I knew a different
So did
one.
I. It was a bit of a culture shock adjustment, but hey, you take it on the chin, live and learn, move on. He was a great dude.
I blame Zubek.
Yeah, Zubek corrupts.
Tainted him.
He corrupts equally. But no, my experience here on the KATT has been and was nothing short of excellent. I started out working some weekend overnights where I could get some work in hours.
Now, that's while you were in college at UCO, correct?
Yeah, I was kind of like floating around. I did some hours at UCO, at Rose State. I was transferring whatever I could. You know, it was college on a budget was the goal for me, and was able to pull it off. Wound up with a degree in marketing and business administration from UCO. And just continued on here because the gig was, you know, I had no issues with it. I was kind of established at that point.
Okay, so before you graduated college, had you been promoted to be the producer of the Rick and Brad morning show?
Yes. In fact, that happened way earlier on than I anticipated. I kind of fell lucky backwards into it, and I credit former operations manager and program director Chris Baker for doing that for me, for anyone that has known Bake in the industry for years and years and years. So I worked overnights and traveled back and forth from Altus to the city to work weekends here at the KATT.
Dude, how long of a commute was that?
2.5-ish hours, 2:45.
That's a long drive. So you were leaving at 3 in the morning?
Yeah, and either getting back home or I'd stay at my aunt's house who lived on the south side in the Moore area and then go back to Altus the next day. Like, however I could make it work. My goal was get up here, get some hours, get some experience, hoping to have either a part or full-time position once I did finally move from Altus to the city, because there was a month or two transition period where I made that commute and then moved up here.
That gas bill. That made that commute happen a lot faster.
It
that
really
move
did
happen a lot faster.
Yeah. I was bringing as many boxes as I could each trip to the city, you know. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, interesting times then. And then I lived here in the metro maybe 2-3 months or something like that, and got a random phone call, and it was from Chris Baker, and he goes, "Hey, we had some changes here on the station. Would you be interested in producing the morning show, and can you make it work with your schedule?" And at that time, I don't think I had laid in my full college schedule at UCO or Rose State yet. And so I made some adjustments and took a lot of night classes. And then I was producing the morning show, just walked in on like a Monday, had never met these guys. They had never really met me. They heard me.
You were just doing weekends at that point, right? And so you for sure never were seeing them.
No, I never crossed paths. And that was what was funny is, you know, I always gave them a hard time, but like grew up almost my entire life, not quite my entire life, listening to Rick and Brad whenever we could on the KATT when you were in Altus, because occasionally you get some signals. You know, there's a lot of air bases down there. So,
well, because our upbringings were very similar. Except you grew up in Altus, I grew up in Ardmore.
Yep.
But back when we were kids, even though I'm several years older than you are, but back in those days, that KATT signal was massive.
It was.
And would travel over the mountains and go into southern Oklahoma.
Well, and in the evening and at nights, it had legs. Like you would listen to the KATT, you know, sometimes into the eastern parts of the Texas Panhandle. Like it had some weird and wild reach on that FM signal, which was cool. And that's kind of what, you know, gave me the legacy of the station and the appreciation for it.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to work here, I already had that respect of like, don't F this up type of thing.
I had this sticker right here with the cat head, but this perspective of him looking straight on, bow tie and around the face is where it cut out. And it was about that size on top of my old school NES Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Zubek gave it to me.
Yeah, my dad, there's a picture of me just on my personal and private social media. I was a baby, probably months old. I can't guess an age. My dad's wearing a tank top with the KATT logo on it, holding me, and that was, late 80s easily. And he had already worn that shirt quite some time, so it had some years on it. So yeah, we listened to the KATT. It was a mainstay, just rock in general. We grew up classic rock, new rock. I kind of, as I got older, got into some of the heavier metal or new age stuff. Really, my love for rock music sits firmly in the grunge era. Like that is kind of what has spoken to me, and I keep coming back to years and years later. I'll still go listen to a old Soundgarden album or whatever, So yeah, spent fast forward a little bit, did a lot of Rick and Brad producing over the years, a lot of great stories and interesting stuff there. Bunch of KATT Fest events or KATT events in general, blood drives. I mean, just having 15 years of being on air with the station was I don't take it for granted. Like it was an awesome experience.
How long had you been doing concert photography from the time I started? Because you were doing it when I started.
Yeah, I can't really remember a year that I picked all that back up, but it probably would have been 2010 to 13-ish, somewhere in that wheelhouse.
So not long before I got here.
Yeah, no, I had just picked it up recently because, again, you work in radio, you see a need like, hey, we should have some high quality images. We should have some access at some of these events that, through either buddies that couldn't make it or friends of friends that kind of like, yeah, I'll shoot you some pictures you guys can share on social. It kind of became cumbersome, and I'm like, well, I work here and I've got some history with photography. I did a lot of that stuff in high school and in college just as a fun creative outlet. Let me kind of invest in the gear and do it all again. And so that's exactly what I did. I picked up the camera again, taught myself a new system, and went out and started shooting concerts and wound up shooting Thunder games and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
You became one of my favorite concert photographers for sure.
Well, thanks, man.
I can think of several that I'm a big fan of. Like there's one series of shots that you did with Candlebox, and I can't remember the venue.
That was at the Diamond. I've got a picture of Kevin on my wall.
Yep.
That's one of my favorites. He's wearing a black shirt that just says "Has Been" on it. And because I made that a black and white shot, it just pops. And it's one of my favorite images I've ever taken. That was my first show, coincidentally, that I ever got hired by a band to shoot them for a show.
Really?
Yeah. They're, I forget if it was one of their promo people or their TM, their tour manager at the time, reached out a couple of days before the show, and they were like, hey, we like your work. We've seen, tagged or whatever, hashtags they found me on social media. Would you be willing to shoot this show? Our budget is X. And I was like, I'm going to the show anyway. Yeah, I planned on shooting it for the radio station. And so they hired me to shoot that show, and it was a ton of fun. No real special access other than I got to shoot a little longer in the pit than maybe some other photographers would have. So maybe I had some opportunities to get some different shots.
What most people don't realize, when you're shooting a show as a photographer for a media entity, you typically get to shoot the first 2 or 3 songs.
3 if you're lucky, 2 for sure. And that, I never really got a firm answer on why that is, other than like that's just an old industry thing from like I think the 70s and 80s where, by the time the 3rd song, the makeup's wearing off, the hairspray's getting, down or whatever, or pyro, things like that they're implementing throughout the show. And so it's just stuck. It's like shoot 3 songs, get out of there, and then let the band perform and interact with the crowd and stuff. And so, yeah, the concert photography was a ton of fun, and learned a lot. Learned a lot through other photographers around the metro that have been shooting great shows for way longer than I could have dreamed of.
Who's your favorite?
Man, that's a loaded question.
It's hard, bro, because there are several really great photographers. And here's what's crazy. There is a group of younger photographers in their 20s that are starting to shoot shows and stuff that are doing awesome work too. Yeah, and they're kind of giving it their own style and their own look.
And I fully credit the internet and the age of like being able to educate yourself through YouTube and tutorials and learn things faster and be more efficient. because some of the old school guys, they grew up with film, then they kind of migrated into digital slowly but surely, or now they're all digital, some film.
As professionals on the job had to learn a completely new medium.
Yeah. And catch up quickly, So a favorite, I mean, I kind of go back to Vernon Gowdy. He's got some great shots, some classic Oklahoma.
Vernon Gowdy III is a legend in my book, just because of the sheer volume of shows that he has shot, but how historic some of those shows. Like the Texas Jams, the original Rocklahoma that was in Norman, all of the Rocklahomas in Pryor, all of the shows at the Diamond, you name it. If the Zoo, if it's happened, he shot it.
Oh yeah, pretty much. And he was also, and I say this about all the photographers in Oklahoma City, the three that I wound up sticking around or kind of buddying with the most, I think, just from proximity of seeing them at the most shows, is like Christy Norris, Vern, and Freddie Salazar. Always seeing them at shows, couldn't have been nicer, more accommodating, willing to help, answer questions. Like, usually in a community like that, most people are pretty protective and closed off. And those guys were awesome. And so I
ain't share my magic secrets with you, Ryan.
I can't really pick a favorite, but they were always welcoming, and I enjoyed it. And it never felt like competition because we weren't competing for anything. We were just there to enjoy the show, get some shots, and go off and do our own thing. So
what was Bill Murray's character in Kingpin?
Oh God,
not Vernon. No. If I were a photographer, that's how my attitude would be just like his.
I will find it.
Just mean as hell the whole time.
Yeah, what was that character? Ernie McCracken.
Yeah, I'd be the Ernie McCracken of rock and roll photographers.
Yep, and Woody Harrelson was Roy Munson. Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, did some photography. Did stuff for the Thunder. Up until where my photography, like I say, career or reinvigorated career with photography died was the COVID game at the NBA.
I forgot you were at that game.
We were at that game
where the dude touched all the microphones or whatever, and then got COVID the next day.
Yeah, tested positive, and then I think at that game technically there may have been more than one player or personnel test positive. And that was, to me, still the day the world shut down. Like, that night was...
Because the game had not tipped off yet.
Yeah, it didn't start. Everybody was in the arena. They had done, player intros, ready to go.
But then the delays kept happening.
Yeah, the delays kept happening. It was like, hey, we're going to wait 15 minutes. And we thought it was a TV delay. Like, the game that was on before them just went long or went into overtime, whatever. Then 15 became a half hour. And then 45 minutes in, if I remember right, they just came on the arena.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because I know the group of people that you were around and kind of where you were at the game.
Yep.
You were around a bunch of journalists and media people.
A lot.
Who are speculatory by nature.
Yeah, asking questions.
So when delays start happening, who was the first one to throw it out there that it was COVID related and the game's not happening before the NBA, before anybody? Because somebody did.
And I'm sure they did, but you're right, because there were so many of them in the room, it was one of those, everyone was just chattering. And so I don't know if I can pinpoint one person that was just, and I'll joke about it, like Barry Trammell, that would just be like, oh, this is happening. Or it might have been this. I don't think it really happened like that. I think everybody was just having conversations in hallways and around each other that were just, hey, it's gotta be this. The stars are aligning here. We were seeing other areas around the country that were having some COVID issues, and we're like, is this it? And
it was all 100% Rudy Gobert's fault.
It was. The NBA started and stopped with COVID right there with Rudy Gobert.
He ruined it. He shut the world down.
So in terms of photography after that, there were no NBA games to shoot. They moved to the temporary stuff in Orlando at Disney and finished out the season with that weird NBA.
In the bubble, I forgot they were at Disney.
Yeah, they played in the bubble, and that was such a weird thing. to exist looking back on now, but it made sense in the time. They did their best with what was available to them. I guess that's the way to put it.
They had more than the COVID cones of shame.
Yeah. Walking down hallways 6 foot apart just because that was the recommendation at the time. Golly, yeah, that was nuts. So no more real photography after that. I may have shot like a couple of little family sessions for, friends or relatives and things. And then just slowly about almost a year into COVID, I'm like, why am I still sitting on all this expensive camera gear? And so I just started selling it off, and I was like, it's fine. I can make do. If I ever want to get back into it again, maybe I can down the road. And so
you're pretty techie anyway. Like you're pretty into technology, and when it advances to kind of learning the newest tech that's out there, and especially when it comes to audio and video and camera stuff, because you've shown me more than I ever thought I would know about cameras and just quality and file types and especially on my phone.
Oh yeah,
of the capabilities that your phone has that I had no idea.
Oh yeah, and just like most people that have a more modern iPhone or Android, whatever, the cameras have gotten so good. I mean, it's just you're walking around with quality in your pocket that people never dreamed of even 10 years ago. It's pretty remarkable what you can do. Like now you can shoot like lossless ProRes video on an iPhone and on some Androids, depending on capabilities.
Okay, so when you open the camera on your iPhone and you have the different settings, like here, I'll just do it so I can tell you.
Sure.
Open it up. You go all the way to the left. You've got time lapse.
Yep.
Then slow-mo, cinematic, video, photo, portrait, and panoramic.
Yep.
So if you go to cinematic, is that the lossless version?
No, the cinematic is essentially like using the phone's computer algorithm to some degree and some machine learning to kind of give that background the fake blur. So you've highlighted a subject and the background's blurred out, and then maybe you can focus on another area and it just kind of pulls focus to that other spot.
Gotcha.
And gives you that. That's kind of what cinematic mode does. With ProRes RAW, you can be in the video mode, and in some of your iPhones, depending on what software you're on, you just go into the settings and you can enable ProRes shooting.
Gotcha.
I don't recommend doing it all the time because those are large
files.
Video files, large files. Now, some of the newer phones these days, like you can, I think it's the 15 and 16 Pro phone models for iPhones, you can run a USB-C external hard drive or like solid state drive to save the files externally as you're shooting. But there's still giant file sizes to work with. But the point of it is just like you've got quality now that you don't need a big cinema red camera to shoot something.
Yeah, you don't need 25K, 50K cameras.
You don't need a big RE like video setup like you're shooting a movie or something. Now you can still use that stuff, get great results, whatever. A lot of people do.
I like Polaroid for video.
A lot of people do. But
take them together.
Yeah, I mean, the tech is just something I've always been interested in and passionate about. I follow a lot of YouTube channels that are very tech heavy, tech based, a lot of reviews and things like that, just because I'm always interested to know what's coming or what software updates kind of turn on different features and things like that. It's just kind of the nerd side of my brain I like to tickle, and I do that outside of work. I'm even on the weekends, I find myself, diving into YouTube, just kind of spending some time there.
So why I wanted to have you on is a while back, your role here at the radio station changed. You're no longer the producer of the Rick and Brad Morning Show. Yep. You are now our digital sales manager for all of our radio stations.
Yep.
Sports Animal, 98.9 Kiss FM, Alice 104.9, 640 AM and 930 AM WKY, as well as 100.5 the KATT.
Yep.
And you and I talk every single day here at work about the things that we have the ability to do. Yep. And it blows my mind. Like when you have a conference call or a new product is released for us to have the ability to sell to our clients, when a new vendor pops up or whatever who can do something else, you'll come in and you'll be like, you're not going to believe this, but we can now do X.
Yeah. And
it blows my mind because when we first started in this business, it truly was traditional media.
Right.
Like our radio stations had websites. Yes.
Yeah.
Were we streaming our audio on the air or over the internet? Yeah.
Not when I started.
Some of them were. Like when I was in college at Rogers State, we were streaming in 2001, 1999, 2000.
All
and
right.
that was
pretty early.
Yeah. And we were the only college radio station in Oklahoma that was. But it was 100% because of Mark Cuban's software that he developed.
Oh, yeah.
And he gave
radio on the internet.
Yes. And it was all because of sports.
Yeah.
But he gave it to certain colleges to use.
To kind of test.
Yes. And Rogers State was one of those on the forefront of that.
Interesting.
Which is why I went there. But when I started at the commercial station I worked for, Rock Station in Tulsa, they were streaming then at that time. But you didn't really sell digital advertising on your website. Mm-mm. You didn't sell separate advertising on your on-air stream or your stream that was on your website. There were 3 different versions.
Yeah.
There was audio, which was radio. There was video, which was TV, because you couldn't stream video on the internet.
Yeah.
And there was print, which was newspapers and magazines.
Yeah, newspapers, local, whatever, community type things.
And with print, I throw in billboards in there as well because they had to be printed.
Yeah.
It wasn't digital boards.
Yeah.
Well, I tell everybody, like when I go back to Rogers State and I speak to the students, I tell them that's all changed. There is now one media. It is all the same. Audio, video, print, digital, everything is all in one big giant lump sum. Now, it can be broken up and divvied up into different ways. Like if you want to advertise only on the radio, you can do that. Mm-hmm. If you want to advertise on the radio and on the on-air stream of the radio station, you can do that. But there are things out there now that completely blow my mind.
Yeah.
With social media and with these things right here, regardless of how much you don't like big government and being tracked, if you have a cell phone, even if it's a prepaid burner phone you bought at Walgreens, you're still being tracked. If you have a Facebook, if you have an Instagram, if you have a Gmail account, if you use Google to find anything, all of that data is being tracked and gathered to help other businesses market themselves to you.
Well, and not to sort of snuff it out, but the whole data tracking, data analytics conversation part of digital advertising or digital, tracking and targeting.
It's scary to think about. It's a daunting task.
Yeah, but also that could be an all-day conversation on how that works. To overly simplify it, there are firms around the world that all they do, they're data aggregators, and then they sell that data to people that either want to target you with ads or whatever the case may be. There's thousands of companies like this that essentially just buy tracking data of users so we can better identify and target things that appeal to you most. So you have more customized ads being fed to you rather than this just broad, for lack of a better comparison, TV, radio, or print approach from yesteryear.
It's a different time in 2024 going into 2025.
Yeah. And it's been that way for several years. It's just only getting better and better and better.
And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I feel like there's a lot of unknowns and misconceptions that scare people away from digital advertising.
Right.
Is it affordable for businesses, especially small, locally owned businesses who don't have a big budget like a Chevy or a Coca-Cola or a major brand? Let's say there's a business out there that they may only have $500 a month to be able to put towards marketing.
Yeah.
How would a digital marketing campaign be beneficial for them, and what would your approach be?
The approach is well, let me back up a little bit. So you mentioned I went from producing a Rick and Brad show to springboarding into a digital sales manager role here in the building. And that was partly because there was a timely retirement of someone that had been here for decades and decades and decades that has done tons of work and is responsible for tons of promotions and things that have gone on in the area that a lot of people don't know about. He stepped away, and I just threw my hat in the ring thinking maybe there wasn't a chance. I had never sold, which I didn't know how it was going to be taken by our sales team that I'm now going to have to lead in a certain way. I'd never been a traditional seller.
I thought it was the most fitting hire for that position that's happened since I've been here, because you are so knowledgeable about tech and the digital world and in reality, the way it's all working now.
Well, and I also have this sort of, and I don't really even know where it came from, and I haven't done a lot of thought trying to track it back, but I've always had this thing where, like, if I don't know, I'm going to find out for you. Like, I'm going to try to do some digging, do some legwork, ask people that do know, include other experts in their field, because just knowing that you're a digital marketer or you do digital sales, that doesn't mean I'm an expert in every arena. I've got a broad knowledge on a lot of it, but there are people whose whole jobs are to do paid search campaigns. So Google ads, Bing ads on search platforms, that's a whole workload in and of itself for a single person to do. So when it comes to very particular questions and things like that, I always defer to the experts, and it's like, I may not know, but I will find out for you. Now, to sort of answer your questions, is it affordable? 1,000% yes. And I'm not saying that as a salesperson. A lot of people can do themselves some good by just spending time with their like Google business profile, if they've got a brick and mortar or if they're a service area business, making sure that all their information can be found on all their social media channels. Because while, people are all over the internet, they're not all platform agnostic. You may have people that only use Facebook or only use Instagram because they like more photos and video, or now it's maybe they only use TikTok because they're tired of the other two, or they're only on Snapchat, things like that. So it's, you kind of got to have a leg in every space. And to me, as if I'm giving advice to a small business owner, invest some time into just organically trying to reach an audience by posting a few times a week, once a day if you can, but definitely a few times a week on various social media channels. That seems daunting, and there are lots of great people that can help you with that organic content. We can help you with some of that too. That's one way to just establish that you're an active business that people can reach out to.
Instead of just being a page that does nothing.
Right. Yeah. Instead of just doing the bare minimum where I've got a cover photo, a profile pic, and I put my address on there. Like, there's a little more to it than that. And sometimes business owners are like, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, it actually will benefit you long term if you just invest a little bit of time in doing that yourself, because that's something that's free. Now, it is platform exclusive. So if Facebook or, Google or TikTok ever changes anything, you're going to be at their will because you're using their platform for free and they're gathering data. Like, that's kind of the exchange you've got to understand is going on. But from like a digital ads perspective, yeah, I mean, you can run a campaign, as small as a few $100. I mean, it all really depends on, as your budget gets smaller or more constrained, you need to target fewer people so you can be more effective.
I feel like there's so many people that may own a business or even be in a band or be an artist that their idea of digital marketing is, I'm going to spend some money on some Facebook ads and that's my digital marketing.
Yeah.
And they're missing 99% of the digital world that's out there because there's so many people that are not on those platforms. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that we have the ability to do.
Okay.
Like, obviously people know that you can post something on Facebook and you can pay to boost that and they will feed it to more people because that's their business model is they're going to hold back what you're posting as a business to make you pay for it to send it to the people that already follow your page.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and
which is like the mafia standing outside the door of a retail business and not letting people in who already know about the business.
Right. Or when you're boosting a post, most simply is Facebook is feeding that out to people that have similar circumstances, interests, behaviors as people that already follow your business. You know, they're trying to kind of shoot fish in a barrel with that attempt.
So you're not reaching a new audience like you think you are.
You may be reaching a new audience that isn't following you yet, but they're very similar to your current audience, and you're not always targeting people in other arenas. And when I mention the term targeting, I'm talking about people with a particular, demographic, household income, maybe ethnicity or religious slant or whatever the case may be. Yeah, zip codes where they live. Even in some digital areas, neighborhoods and geofenced buildings and other businesses where they might be. I mean,
okay, so we'll get into that in just a minute.
Okay,
but there's obviously the social media ads. Then there's Google, where your business or whatever is going to populate on Google at the top of their page.
Yep.
But then there's so much more to it, to advertising on all of the different audio apps that are ad-based, like Spotify or YouTube. Or
TuneIn, Odyssey,
Hulu,
or whatever. I mean, there's a ton of... and maybe that's a good example for me to mention something like this.
And now Disney Plus and ESPN Plus and
YouTube TV, Sling,
Netflix,
all of them.
All of that is ad supported.
I'm still of the opinion, and with digital, I'll put it this way. My opinions will always change because digital's always changing. And so when you follow the trends, follow what people are doing, follow their watching habits or viewing habits, whatever, those opinions will change, and they kind of need to. They need to stay fluid. Currently, I call smart TV apps or connected TV apps, connected to the TV. It can also be referred to as OTT or over-the-top advertising, over the top of streaming or connected TVs and things like that. I refer to all of that as people over platform, where it doesn't necessarily benefit a particular business, in my opinion, currently, as we sit, to go, I only want to run streaming ads on Hulu TV or only on YouTube TV. Okay, great. But of those people you're targeting, how many of those people have a YouTube TV subscription? Or how many of them only watch Hulu? Our habits are...
I got the bundle, bro.
Well, and you've got kids. I've got a kid. We hop around apps like crazy based on what's available. A lot of them will just use the voice search on your remote or whatever, and it'll just auto-load the app and the programming and start playing it.
And now that Roku has a whole FGTV channel...
Yeah,
I mean, I gotta force them to turn FGTV off.
Oh, I know. And by default, I've got a Samsung TV in my living room at home, so it automatically loads the Samsung TV free app. And it's streaming. It's got a zillion channels. You could watch Westerns until the end of time, or you could sit and watch Reels or Hot Rod TV or whatever. I mean, there's hundreds of channels that are absolutely free, but they're streaming commercial content to you that can be targeted. And so that's why right now my opinion is still advertise on and target people over the platform that they're on. So target your demographics, target your interests, target your zip codes, you literally kind of hone in on your audience and stop caring about where they're watching the content and just try to deliver ads to wherever they are. And that's kind of the current goal when it comes to video streaming and video commercials, OTT, CTV, all those things all those fun digital acronyms that I just mentioned. Those don't need to be memorized by any sort of advertiser because I don't think it behooves them of anything because the acronyms are always going to be in flux or in changing. It is possible to advertise on a low budget for any sort of small business, local bands that are just trying to sell tickets to their show on Friday night, all kinds of stuff like that. Right now, I'm even kind of the opinion that if your target audience is 40 and older, Instagram and Facebook. If it's 40 and under, TikTok. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And that's a broad statement. When it gets into particulars, there's still some audiences on TikTok that I think are going to be more beneficial than advertising on a Meta platform or Facebook or Instagram.
But because I deal with so many local bands on the smaller level, they're booking shows at smaller places that hold, 200, 300 people or less. It's not economical for them to buy a bunch of radio commercials on the KATT and that buckshot approach.
Yeah.
So let's say a band has a show, they could target very specific people. Let's say the people in this band are all 25 years old, and they're from Norman.
Okay. Yeah.
And the show itself is in Norman.
Okay.
So what would your approach be?
If it's, if the show's in Norman, obviously if you want to stay close to home and you want, you're not asking people to commute necessarily across the state or several counties over to come to your small local band show, then yeah, you're targeting people that are say 25 to 35, maybe even 40, depending on how much budget you might have to sell those tickets. And you're looking at zip codes around Norman. And you might even look into geofencing where other shows are happening that might be similar music to yours, or other, bars and restaurants that are similar types of people that you want to get into your show.
And it would serve those types of people.
Yeah. And it would
your ad.
Yeah, in general, I'm speaking, you would target them or capture their device ID with what they're carrying in their pocket and send them ads for the next 30 days, trying to get them to click on the link to go buy tickets, or whatever the case may be, to take that next step, that next action.
Whereas traditional radio, the ads are sold by quantities of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So digital advertising is sold by number of impressions.
Yeah, impressions, or usually it can be a cost per click type campaign or a pay per click type campaign and the most common thing to refer to with that is like Google ads that you see, sponsored ads on Google. Those are all pay per click. A client only pays if someone has clicked on that ad that was served to them. So someone could get delivered the ad impression, they never make an action on it, didn't cost the client any money or the advertiser any money. If they do click on it, it's whatever they, sort of auctioned or bid for that placement on the platform. And you can set your auction and bid constraints. These are all things that normally our team and our fulfillment teams and support teams, they all manage for our clients. But that's kind of the broad nuts and bolts of how that works. But yeah, you're buying impressions rather than, spot time on the radio or on TV.
What approach has been the most successful for you, or what? Give me an example of a digital marketing campaign that you've been a part of creating here since you've started that has been the most successful.
Man, there's been some fun ones. One that I continued working on and working with is we've got a client that is in the home services category. So plumbing, heating, air, all, etc. Home services, they got you covered type thing. We are running a campaign that is broken down so specifically that if someone is Googling electrical terms, we are sending them ads catered to their electrical needs. If it's for HVAC terms and things like that, or a furnace or heater, we're serving them ads based on their search criteria, on their keyword search into Google. And so the ads can be sort of catered and morphed in a way that we're delivering different ads to different places, to different people. And the success rate, on that is, I think last month he had 290 something confirmed phone calls from ads to his business, which were just astronomical for me.
Because at that point, it's up to his staff to convert that into an actual sale.
Sure.
Or a real an ongoing client,
a lead of some sort,
But you've delivered the customer to them at that point,
right? And the same thing goes for if you use the example of a band selling tickets, or trying to sell tickets, if you're running ads on social media, or if you're running generalized more display ads or streaming video ads, and they click on that ad or take an action on that ad that lands them on the particular ticket site or landing page or whatever, the band's Instagram for more information, whatever, wherever we're leading them after they click on that ad. Once they're there, we can't always make them take the next action. We can usually track what actions they do take if we've got certain access, which is a whole other mind-blowing conversation. But you're leading the horse to water. You can't make them drink. That's kind of the thing.
So I want to take this a step further.
Okay.
Because it's the first thing that I thought about when we talked about a lot of these things. Because there are so many bands that and musicians that listen to my podcast. I am a former musician who was in a band, played lots of shows. Always been
shout out Hot Rod Bob
20th anniversary re-release on Spotify now.
Nice.
Remastered with some bonus stuff. And I have been around the music industry and touring artists and things like that for a long time. And the marketing of a tour or a record release has always just been a mind-blowing task when you think of it on the global scale rather than the local scale.
Yeah.
And I thought about bands going on tour. So your schedule in advance. You're playing on this day in this city, this day in this city, this day in this city. So you've got that ahead of time that you're going to be promoting.
Right.
Digital advertising is so beneficial for touring bands that they could come to you and promote their entire tour in those specific cities leading up to those dates and do it all from right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to leave home to do that. It's
like two examples that I could give you. Now, they haven't done this, but they should. Like Ben Quad and Cliff Diver, who just released records and just announced tours. And they're going on pretty lengthy tours, 30, 40 dates or more. They could spend some money and market those shows with digital campaigns in those zip codes that they're playing leading up to the show, targeting people of that age group who are already interested in the same things and listen to the same genres of music that they play.
Right.
And you totally bypass traditional marketing altogether, but you're feeding the audience that is into the same things that you like where you're going to be.
Right. And
another band from here, because I'm going to make him listen to this, is Locust Grove. I'm for sure sending this to Zane from Locust Grove because they tour. Yeah. And this would be very beneficial for them to market their shows in the cities they're playing out of state to the audiences that are into the same sounding or same type of bands.
And you can still treat digital marketing with the rollout of your traditional tour approach, where all the tickets generally for a tour are either going on sale all at once or they're selling the first 7 dates or whatever. I'm spitballing here, but they're selling a group of dates. They all go on sale at the same time, same place generally. And so you've got a lot of promo from the announcement to that on sale date, your front end of the promotion, as we both know just from how things work in the industry. Well, you can do the same thing with digital. Have a heavy front end promotion for, I say, 3-4 weeks leading into the on sale date, probably the last 2 weeks being the big push. And then once they go on sale, you just run maybe like a very small, like general awareness type campaign on different either social outlets or with video, things like that. Just kind of keep trickling the information that like, hey, we're still coming on X date. Hey, we're still coming. And then a couple weeks before the show, you do that big back end push if you haven't already sold out. And then, or you've got that final release of the last few hundred or 1,000 tickets, and you put those on sale and push it that way, or ticket specials and bundles and things like that. It really does come down to how you plan it out. But you can execute it all from one place and pretty easily these days compared to most.
So if you were in a band and you were going on tour, or if you're in a band and you are booking shows, get at me. I will put you in contact with Ryan, and he will make sure that you're not playing to an empty room, and you actually have fans there to see you, and new fans that are into what you're doing.
Don't put that pressure on me, Bobby. Don't put that pressure on me.
I'll take it a step further. It doesn't matter how terrible your band is. Ryan will get people there.
Well, it made me think of something that we haven't even talked about. How have you been able to track success with traditional marketing, period? How have you been able to track any other than just generalized seeing, hey, my sales might have increased or whatever? You can't really track the effectiveness of a campaign. Whereas with digital, I mean, you're seeing the results as they happen in real time or within a day's, 24-hour period. And you can make changes based on what you're seeing. Oh, they're not clicking on this ad. Maybe the creative's not good, or maybe it's not getting their attention. Maybe we make this ad moving or a GIF or something. Like, let's try to get their attention so they click on it. And you can follow that tracking. And that's what blows most people's minds is like, hey, I can actually see what I'm spending my money on. Like, I can see the results as they happen. Yeah. The funny part about digital is you may have someone who goes, I never saw my ad. And it's like, well, am I targeting you? Like, you're the business owner. You're the last person I want to target.
Yeah.
But if I need to,
you already know what's on sale, bro.
Yeah. You're selling it, man. But yeah, that was one thing I totally forgot about in having this whole conversation is just the trackability of it and the transparency of it. If there's a problem, we can work through it. And we usually see the problem, catch it sooner than your whole week of spots already airing and going, oh crap, that website was wrong or that phone number was wrong or whatever. And then you've wasted all that advertising. You can catch it quicker and kind of do your homework a little better. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Give Jay a call, give me a call, whatever. We're happy to help.
So I first of all, thank you for taking the time because I know how busy you are and you know how busy I am. But this is something we wanted to do because I thought it was beneficial for the people that listen to the show and especially the local band community and even national artists and band managers and things like that listen to the podcast. We can help you.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in all things, but I'm an expert in trying to find help for people that need it. Like that's what I'm trying to be here and be helpful for. Is just trying to make the connections happen. If I don't know all the answers, I'll find someone that does. That's the easy one.
Where can someone reach you?
They can just email me, ryan.day@cumulus.com. They can also just go to the Cumulus Media website and, submit an inquiry, and that'll come to me just based on where you're located. So that inquiry will come to me somehow. They can reach out to you, message you here on the podcast, whatever. There's a tons of ways to get a hold of us and take it from there.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan.
Of course, man. Enjoyed it.
What is your name?
I am Jay Ramone, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
Wackadoo.
I can't fix that.
Snap.
We got way bigger problems if I can't deal with that. Let's see if there's a...
This stuff can give you brain damage.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
The power of the internet is truly amazing.